said, I think we are ready for Miss Jen Bond. I see her in the room in her beautiful blue. I'm wearing some bracelets she may tell you about. Thanks to Jen, the people who come to the Oscars and the Emmys with us get to have a little Jen bling on their arm. So Jen, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I am super excited to be here today with you, Deb, and thank you again for inviting me to be a part of this incredible project. I've been able to speak on several of the summits, and I am always incredibly inspired by the women that I hear in this space. And I'm really excited that there's some guys here this time around, which is really exciting. I want to start out by telling each of you congratulations too. I think we can't take it too lightly that the importance of showing up, being here and being voices in this world, just like Tammy said earlier, there's so much negative energy, I feel like, in the world right now, and it's constant. And so to be in a space like this that is uplifting, that's positive, that's really being change makers. And I keep on hearing this recurring theme of that ripple effect. And that's something that I speak about a lot. It's really extraordinary. So congratulations to everybody here for being here and being a part of this, no matter, why you showed up. Um,
And can I interrupt you? Because
yeah,
I want to do welcome to the stage, but I want to let people know who you are. I want to give them a powerful introduction of yourself. Can I do
no
that?
problem.
No, because everyone knows Jen. Jen's OG 262 OG. But let me tell you, not only does she bling, but she is an expert specialist in Vision Plus strategy. She has received an award in the top percentage of the top leadership level in the direct sales industry. She is an international best-selling author. She's going to talk to us today about living your and with courage. That, I think, is a pivotal piece. The thing that you may not know about her is she lived and studied musical theater in London. The music that she's gigging right now is Lady Gaga. Woo, she's been taking the awards, Lady Gaga. Well, let's put it this way first. Everyone, get your chat swag ready, is going to be winning a workbook on living your and after listening to her talk about that, now I know you're all going to sit up. You're all going to go like this when I tell you that one person is going to win a $500 swag bag of Park Lane jewelry. So listen up, people. So I wanted to get that in there, Jen.
No worries, no worries. I was ready to jump in, but I do appreciate that very generous introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, here, and guys, let me just go ahead and preface this by saying I'm really sorry if I talk to the ladies most of the time today because I am in a space most of the time where I am around a lot of women. But we so appreciate you being here, and guys who support women. I have a special place in my heart for men like you. I want to start out by asking each of you, though, a question that you may have considered this before, but I really want you right now to drop into yourself, drop into your bodies right now today. And I want you to think about this question. And that is, have you ever had a moment in your life where you felt really, really grateful? Okay. You felt very, very abundant. You felt deeply grateful. And at the same time, there was something inside of you that thought, there's a little something more. Maybe you were wanting a little bit more purpose. Maybe you were wanting more impact. Isn't that what this 262 Summit is so much about? Maybe you were looking for some more fulfillment, some more alignment. Research shows there's countless studies that women between the ages of 40 to 60 feel deeply, deeply dissatisfied. And my question is, have you ever had that moment before? Just show of hands here. Anybody ever had that? Like you had this weird thing where you're like, I'm so grateful. Like my life is amazing. And there's something that's missing. And here's the thing is, it's not because your life's bad. It's not because you're failing, but there's something inside of you that knows that you haven't fully stepped into this next level. You haven't fully stepped into that next version of yourself. Yeah, I have felt that several times over my lifetime before. And it's one of those things that can stop us for a moment. And so I'm going to be talking about that with you here today. Real quick though, before I get started, I want to get an idea. I have a little bit of an idea who's in the audience. If you would just tell me really quickly in the chat here, who here is an entrepreneur or a business owner? If you just drop it in the chat for me so I have an idea of who's here. Who's here works as a corporate professional? Maybe you work for somebody else. You work in a company. Okay, I'm waiting for our chat to catch up on us. Okay, and then question for you. Who here is really in this season of reinventing yourself? Maybe you're stepping into something different. Maybe you're in transition. Anybody in that situation? Okay, lots of different people who are in those seasons. What I love, and especially about this 262 Summit, is that while a lot of these different backgrounds and paths may look different, the interesting thing is that often there's this deeper desire that we're talking about here inside of us. And that's this desire to build a life that's really meaningful and aligned. And that's the key word. A life that is really true to who it is that we are becoming. And that's what this theme is about, of living your but with courage. So here's what I want to do is by the time that I have these next couple of minutes together, by the end of our time together, I really want to accomplish three things. The first thing is that I want to give you a greater awareness of where you may have outgrown some old versions of yourself, if you will. The second thing I want to do is that I want to give you maybe a little bit different perspective on what's truly possible for you moving forward. And third, I want to actually give you a couple of practical tools, and Deb already mentioned one of those, to help you to begin taking some courageous action towards that next version of you. Here's what I've discovered over the last 25 years of coaching women and mentoring women and really leading thousands of women. Most women, in reality, are not lacking potential. That's not the problem. The problem is they're lacking permission. They're lacking permission to evolve. They're lacking permission to step into maybe a different version of themselves. They're lacking permission to change. They're lacking permission to maybe start shedding or discarding some of those labels, some of those things that have been put on us as, okay, well, you're the mom, or you're the career professional, or maybe you have a certain job. And that's what I've seen so often. And one of the things that we see is that so many times, many of us were taught that we had to have that either or, right? And let me be really clear on this. This is not what Stacy was talking about, this bill of goods that we were all taught later. You know, I can bring home the bacon, I can fry it up in a pan. You know, it's that old, now I'm going to date myself here for a second. It's that Angeli perfume commercial. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a lot of us were taught that we could have either success or we could be fulfilled. It's just one or the other. We could have a career or we could have family. We could have purpose or we could have stability. We couldn't have both. Has anybody ever felt that way? I am curious. Anybody ever felt that way, that you had to have that either or? I know that I did. My question is, though, what if that actually was never true? What if it's actually not true? What if that's just a story that we were told? What if that's actually a story we started to tell ourselves? And what if you can have both and? This is what I have been focused on for the last couple of decades. And here's the thing is, I have guided so many women in being able to create that different version of themselves. And I really know this work so deeply because I actually had to live it myself. Deb mentioned that I have been a direct sales expert and entrepreneur for almost 25 years now. And interestingly enough, though, long before I was that person, that version of myself, long before I was a speaker and a coach and now an author, I was actually a professional actress. That was my background. I actually had that dream from a very, very young age. I studied theater. Deb mentioned briefly that I studied musical theater in England. I studied classical theater as well. I worked as a working professional actress for many years. And my entire identity was around it. everything about me, everything about Jen Bond was she's an actress. That's what she does. And I imagined that that would be my life forever. That was going to be my path. That was going to be my future. And then life changed. And it changed when I had a very serious car accident. I had multiple surgeries and I was in chronic pain on a daily basis. I could not get through the day without being on lots of pain pills, on lots of pain medication. And I suddenly found myself looking at this version of my future that I didn't know what that was going to look like anymore. And it no longer felt aligned with what I thought was before. And if I'm honest, I will tell you it was very, very disorienting for me. Because here's the problem is when you get so attached to this one version of your identity, what winds up happening is that when you have to make a different decision, when life maybe is thrust upon you, and something happens, letting go of that old version of yourself can feel like you're losing yourself entirely. Now, when this happened for me, at the same time, I was married. I was a young mom. I had babies on my hips. And I had actually moved halfway across the country. I moved from South Florida to Texas, and I moved away from my family. I moved away from my entire support system. And while I love my life, I also felt something else. I felt this pull towards something else. And it wasn't out of dissatisfaction that I had. It was actually out of this pull to really want to step into something new and different. I love being a wife and a mom. And I knew that there were other gifts. There was this calling. There were these other possibilities. And that realization, it really changed so much for me. And I began to really understand something that sits at the core of most of the work that I do. And that is, you don't have to choose between different parts of your life. You're allowed to evolve over time. And I think so often we get so stuck. You know, there's some wonderful research out of a woman named Bronnie Ware, who actually wrote the book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And she talks about the number one regret that people have at their end of their life is that they wish that they had lived a life true to themselves, not a life true to other people, other people's expectations. Here's the thing is, if you remember only one thing from what I say today, I want it to be this. Your next level, whatever that and is for you, whatever thing is that's pulling you forward, that little dream that you have right now that you might actually not even feel brave enough to say if I asked you to drop it here in the chat. That next level will require courage to become that next version of yourself. You know, so often we're chasing perfection, but there is no perfection. So often we're chasing balance. And I got to tell you, balance is a load of you know what. Okay. Let me just stop here right now. It is one of the most exhausting conversations. That was something that Stacy said earlier too. And I think I saw one of the gentlemen pop in here too say, you know what? Burnout is a real problem. And that's because we focus on this whole balance thing. There's no such thing as balance. I really want to encourage you to start thinking about in terms of harmony, not balance, because harmony is different. Harmony recognizes that there's these different seasons, these different phases and stages in your life. Just like I had this old identity, I was stepping into this new identity. Harmony recognizes that fulfillment is not built through perfection. It's built through alignment. And I'm actually going to give y'all, on top of what I'm already giving you, the workbook, I'm going to give you actually a free tool that I've developed as well. And it's called the Discovery Wheel. And it's going to help you to be able to recognize some different areas in your life and look at your satisfaction. Because here's the thing is, you can't start stepping into that next version until you know where you are right now. Here's what I found. A lot of people are functioning at a very, very high level externally while they're quietly feeling disconnected internally. I've been there. Really successful on paper and deep inside feeling very unfulfilled in spirit. But it's one of those things that if you think about it, it's like the life that you had before fit before. It's like a pair of shoes that fit really, really well. And you put your foot in them and they no longer fit anymore. Anybody else ever feel that way where you had this life before? I'm seeing nods from Sarah, from Carmel. You had this life before and it fit really, really well, and it no longer feels satisfying. Here's the thing is, that's not failure, okay? That's you evolving, that's evolution. But evolution requires courage. It requires courage to pivot, to really reject those old labels. It requires courage for you to start before you feel ready. It requires courage for you to maybe step into a vision that may not make sense to other people. They may not understand what it is that you're stepping into. And sometimes courage simply means admitting there's still a dream that's inside of me. And I actually had one of those dreams myself. You know, for years, I had this dream that I wanted to go see the Himalayas. This is something that I dreamed of since I was a very little girl. And let me tell y'all, this was not a casual dream, okay? I had coffee table books. I listened to documentaries over and over again. If there was a documentary on Mount Everest, on Nepal, on the Himalayas, I was watching it. I read novels. I had pictures posted to my bulletin board long before I had a vision board. And I talked about it constantly. But it was one of those little girl dreams that I had that was inside of me. But over time, I started to create this story. And the story was that, oh, someone like me couldn't go trek the Himalayas. That wasn't available for somebody like me because, see, I was a busy mom and I'm a busy wife and I'm a very, very busy entrepreneur. And isn't that what so many of us do? Don't you start to create these stories for yourself? Like, oh, well, I can't do that because. And what's happening is we're starting to unconsciously decide what's available to us based on where we are currently, rather than thinking about where we're going to be in the future. We're starting to make these decisions based on limitation rather than from a place of possibility. So I eventually did trek the Himalayas, but what I realized is it wasn't about the mountains. That was never the point. The point for me at that moment was pivotal because I realized it was about permission. It was about permission, giving myself permission to step into these other roles, to discard these other labels, giving myself permission that I could have a really busy life. I could be a busy entrepreneur and I could step into something that was meaningful for me. And that's really what living your and means. It means refusing to abandon yourself while you're building this busy life. And it means thinking about and deciding and creating from that next version. What I want to really impress upon you here is that you can't build that next version of yourself, that next level life, using your current level of thinking. Now, many of you may have heard this before because I am in a room full of brilliant women and men, but I really want you to think about creating from your future. I want you to think about creating from the future version of you, not just from where you are right now. You know, a lot of times I see that women, they have that little dream inside of them and they don't have that confidence yet because they think that, oh, okay, I have to be confident first and then I'll start taking that courageous action. Here's the thing though, courageous action is actually the thing that is going to create your confidence over time. You have to move first. You have to decide first. You have to make that decision right now, and then that clarity and that confidence will show up. You know, that's that quote that I love so much that I know you probably, many of you have heard before. And it's Martin Luther King Jr. famously said, faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. And I've always loved that so much because so often we're frozen and we're waiting to have this big picture. We got to have it all figured out. But here's the thing is you don't need the whole roadmap. You have to just take that next right step. So here's what I want to leave you with. I want you to think about what can you do today? What is it that you can do that thing that's been on your heart, that's been in your soul where you're thinking, I really want to step out and do this thing. I want you today to leave here and think, what's that one thing that I can do today? because it's often the smallest little courageous action that you take, picking up that phone, that one conversation, that one person that you're going to message here in the chat, that one person that you're going to connect with, maybe that one brave yes that you're going to have. It's that ripple effect. You know, Deb said this earlier. Tammy mentioned this as well, the ripple effect of what you are doing right now, stepping out. You have no idea how that can impact not only your life, your family's life, your community, but the other people around you. So I want to end with 2 questions for you. Here's the first one. What part of yourself have you abandoned to fit inside an old identity that you had? And where in your life are you settling because it feels safer than evolving? Can you imagine if you started to reframe things, instead of thinking, is this realistic? Can I do this thing? If you started asking yourself, what feels aligned? Because maybe that vision that's pulling you towards something that really doesn't make sense, it might not make sense to other people, maybe feels a little crazy to you, maybe that's there because you were created for more. Here's my invitation to you today. I want to encourage you to stop waiting for someday and to begin now. Start thinking like that person. Start stepping forward. Start making a decision today. Because the woman that you created, or the woman that you're becoming, is created by those courageous decisions that you're making today. That reach out, that call, that know that you're going to no longer be answering everyone's calls. Now, I'll leave you with this final thing. Sometimes your next level is simply one courageous decision today. And what is that courageous decision going to be that you make today?
Oh my goodness. There's so much there. Jen, there's so much there. There's so many mic drops. I see people writing and thinking. And honestly, people take notes and then read them at the end of the day. I loved when you asked those questions because I could see people literally looking up. And I'm sure there's a lot of aha moments in there. Let's show some love. Let's show some love, some jazz hands. That's what we do here because we don't take everybody off mic. That was amazing.